Kim Do-yeon woke up with a headache that felt like someone had driven a mining drill through his skull. The ceiling above him was cracked and stained, nothing like the golden luxury suite he remembered from last night. The smell of cheap cleaning chemicals and recycled air told him everything he needed to know before he even sat up. This was not the Diamond Tower Hotel. He rolled over and immediately regretted it as pain shot through his head. The bed was narrow and uncomfortable, covered with sheets that had seen better decades. Through a tiny porthole window, he could see the neon lights of Star Vegas flickering in patterns that made his eyes water. Red and blue advertisements for gambling halls and pleasure houses painted the cramped room in shifting colors. Where was Valara? Do-hyun forced himself to stand, his legs shaking like a newborn calf. The room spun around him for a moment before settling into focus. It was maybe 10 feet by 10 feet, barely large enough for the bed and a small table. His clothes from last night were scattered on the floor, but something was wrong. His jacket pockets were turned inside out. His boots had been moved. His hands went to his wrist where his credit bracelet should be. Gone. The chain around his neck that held his ship keys. Gone. Even his backup credit chip that he kept sewn into his belt lining. Gone. "Valara!" he called out, his voice cracking. "Valara, where are you?" Silence answered him, the kind of silence that meant he was completely alone. Do-hyun stumbled to the table where someone had left a glass of water and a small white pill. Next to it was a note written in flowing script that he recognized immediately. Valara's handwriting had always been beautiful, like art carved in flowing lines. "My dearest Do-hyun," the note began, "by the time you read this, I will be gone. What we had was wonderful, but all good things must end. I have taken what I need to start my new life. Please understand that this is not personal. It is simply business. Try not to follow me. You will not succeed, and it will only cause you pain. Be well. Valara." Do-hyun read the note 3 times before the full meaning hit him. She had drugged him. She had robbed him. She was gone, but it was worse than that, much worse. He rushed to the room's small terminal and tried to access his accounts. Account frozen. Ship registration transferred. Even his mining claim certificates had been digitally signed over to someone else. Valara had not just stolen his money. She had stolen his entire life. 3 years of work, 3 years of love, 3 years of building something together. Gone in one night. Do-hyun sank into the room's single chair and put his head in his hands. How could he have been so stupid? All the signs had been there. Valara's expensive tastes that never quite matched her claimed income as a mineral trader. The way she always knew exactly what to say to make him feel special. The way she had insisted they combine their finances for efficiency. He had been the perfect mark. A lonely human male working the dangerous asteroid fields, making good money but with no family to go home to, no close friends to warn him, no one who would miss him if he disappeared. Valara had found him on Nexus Station 3 years ago, and he had fallen for her like a rock falling into a gravity well. But something cold was settling in his chest now, pushing back the pain and embarrassment, something that his human ancestors would have recognized. The same feeling that had driven humans across Earth's oceans and into space itself. The feeling that had made humans the most feared debt collectors and bounty hunters in the galaxy. Spite. Do-hyun stood up and walked to the terminal again. His accounts were frozen, but the system still recognized his biometrics. That meant Valara had not completely erased him from the galaxy's databases. She had been in a hurry, probably wanting to get off station before he woke up. Mistakes. She had made mistakes. He pulled up his employment history and smiled for the first time since waking up. Valara knew he worked as a systems engineer for mining operations. What she did not know was that before that, he had spent 5 years working for Terran Defense Corps as a communications specialist. His security clearance was still active. His access codes were still valid. More importantly, every piece of equipment they had purchased together over the past 3 years was registered to his biometric signature. Ships could be transferred, but the advanced navigation computers inside them were locked to the original purchaser for security reasons. Credits could be stolen, but the quantum processing cores they had bought with those credits were worth nothing without the proper authentication codes. Codes that only Do-hyun knew. He began typing, his fingers moving faster as the plan formed in his mind. First, he would need to contact his old supervisor at TDF. Then he would need to activate the tracking protocols built into every piece of military-grade equipment they had acquired. Valara thought she was dealing with a simple mining engineer, but she had just stolen from someone with connections she could not imagine. The terminal chimed softly as his messages were sent through encrypted channels that Valara did not even know existed. Within an hour, he would have confirmation that every quantum core, every navigation computer, and every advanced sensor array they had purchased was now broadcasting its location to Terran Defense Corps monitoring stations. Valara had 3 years on him in terms of criminal experience. She knew how to forge documents, how to avoid security scans, and how to disappear into the galaxy's vast network of traders and smugglers. But she did not know the first rule of stealing from humans. Always make sure they cannot track you. Do-hyun leaned back in the chair and looked out at Star Vegas. The station's lights seemed brighter now, more welcoming. He was broke, alone, and stranded on a gambling station with nothing but the clothes on his back. By any reasonable measure, he had lost everything. But he was human, and humans had a reputation in the galaxy for being absolutely terrible at knowing when they were beaten. They also had a reputation for turning personal revenge into a science. Valara was about to learn why most alien species considered humans to be the galaxy's most dangerous species when they were angry. The hunt was about to begin. Park Ji-won had seen every type of desperate person walk through her shop doors. Gamblers who had lost everything, traders who had been cheated, even pirates who needed to disappear fast. But the human male who stumbled into her pawn shop looked different. He looked dangerous. "I need help," Do-hyun said, placing his hands flat on her counter. His clothes were wrinkled and he smelled like cheap soap, but his eyes were cold and focused. "My alien wife stole everything I own. I want it back." Ji-won looked up from the weapon she was cleaning. She was a small woman, but years of dealing with criminals had taught her how to read people quickly. This human was not here to beg or cry. He was here to make a deal. "That is a sad story," she said carefully. "But I am not a marriage counselor. I buy and sell things. What do you have to trade?" Do-hyun pulled out a small data chip and placed it on the counter. "Information. The location of stolen military-grade quantum processors worth about 50 million credits, plus the authentication. Codes needed to activate them." Ji-won stopped cleaning her weapon. 50 million credits could buy a small space station. "You are either lying or crazy. Military quantum processors are impossible to steal. They have security measures that would kill anyone who tried. Not if the person stealing them had help from someone with proper clearance," Do-hyun said. "Someone who trusted the wrong alien female." He activated the data chip. Holographic displays filled the air above Ji-won's counter, showing technical specifications that made her enhanced eyes go wide. Military quantum cores, navigation computers, sensor arrays, all registered to the human standing in front of her. "These are real," she whispered. "How did you get access to this level of equipment?" "Terran Defense Corps pays very well for recovered alien artifacts," Do-hyun said. "Every piece of equipment on that list came from my personal collection. Every piece is still broadcasting its location to me through channels my wife does not know exist." Ji-won set down her weapon and gave Do-hyun her full attention. She had been running this pawn shop for 15 years, and she had never seen anything like this. "What do you want from me?" "Information. Contacts. Someone who can help me track down my wife and get my property back. Do-hyun leaned forward. In exchange, you get 10% of whatever we recover. 5 million credits. Ji-won had never made that much money in her entire life. But she had also never dealt with anything this dangerous. Military equipment meant military attention. And humans with military connections were not people you wanted to cross. Your wife, she said slowly. What species? Zephyrian. 7 feet. Tall, crystalline skin, calls herself Valara. She has been running cons on lonely human males for years. I know that name. Ji-won stood up and walked to her back office. She returned with a thick file folder. Valara the Heart-Taker. She has hit at least 12 humans in the past 5 years. Always the same pattern. Romance, trust, theft, disappearance. Do-hyun's jaw tightened. 12 others? At least 12 that we know about. She is careful, professional, and very good at what she does. Ji-won opened the folder and showed him pictures of other human males. All of them looked as heartbroken as Do-hyun had when he first walked in. But she has never stolen anything like this before. Military equipment brings military attention. That is what I am counting on, Do-hyun said. Ji-won studied his face and made her decision. I will help you, but we need more people. This is too big for just 2 of us. She picked up her communication device. I know someone who specializes in tracking stolen electronics. He owes me favors. 20 minutes later, Lee Min-sik arrived at the pawn shop. He was a thin man with nervous eyes and fingers that never stopped moving. Former Korean military, according to Ji-won, now working as a freelance hacker in Star Vegas's digital underground. You said this was about stolen quantum processors, Min-sik said without introduction. Please tell me you are not asking me to hack military databases. Nothing that dangerous, Ji-won assured him. Show him the data. Do-hyun activated his chip. Again. Min-sik's nervous energy vanished as he studied the technical specifications. His fingers began dancing through the holographic displays, pulling up information that even Do-hyun had not seen before. These are not just military processors, Min-sik said quietly. These are intelligence-grade quantum cores, the kind used for code breaking and communication intercepts. He looked at Do-hyun with new respect. Who are you exactly? Someone who made the mistake of trusting the wrong person, Do-hyun said. Can you track them? Min-sik grinned for the first time since arriving. Can I track them? These cores are practically screaming their locations across subspace. Your wife might as well be carrying signal flares. His fingers moved faster, pulling up star charts and communication logs. She is 3 systems away, trying to sell them to buyers in the Kepler sector. The hegemony, Ji-won said, her voice suddenly worried. She is dealing with the hegemony syndicate. Do-hyun did not recognize the name, but he could see from their faces that it was bad news. Who are they? The most dangerous criminal organization in this part of the galaxy, Min-sik explained. They control illegal quantum computing operations across 17 star systems. If Valara is trying to sell to them, this has become much more serious than simple theft. Good, Do-hyun said, surprising both of them. I want this to be serious. Ji-won and Min-sik exchanged glances. They were both criminals themselves in their own ways, but they had never seen anything like the cold anger in the human's eyes. You do not understand, Ji-won said. The hegemony kills people who interfere with their business. Even if we find your wife, we cannot just walk in and demand your property back. We do not need to walk in, Do-hyun said. He pulled up another set of codes on his data chip. Every piece of equipment Valara stole has remote access capabilities. If she installs them in hegemony systems, I can access those systems from anywhere in the galaxy. Min-sik's eyes went wide. You want to hack the hegemony? I want to destroy them, Do-hyun corrected. Getting my property back is just the beginning. Valara made 2 mistakes. First, she stole from a human. Second, she gave military-grade equipment to criminals. The room fell silent as the full implications hit them. This was not about recovering stolen goods anymore. This was about turning one woman's greed into a weapon against organized crime. The Terran Defense Corps will pay very well for intelligence on hegemony operations, Do-hyun continued. Enough to make us all rich. Enough to make sure Valara never cons another human again. Ji-won looked at the holographic displays showing 50 million credits worth of military hardware. Then she looked at Min-sik, who was already running calculations on how much the government would pay for hegemony intelligence. "When do we start?" she asked. Do-hyun smiled, and for the first time, since waking up in that cheap hotel room, he felt like himself again. "We already have." 3 days after forming their alliance, Do-hyun sat in the back room of Ji-won's pawn shop, watching data streams flow across multiple screens. Each line of code represented another piece of information flowing through his stolen quantum processors. Valara had no idea that every transaction, every communication, and every system access was being recorded and transmitted back to him. "She is not just selling them," Min-sik said, his fingers dancing across holographic displays. "Look at this pattern. Valara is keeping some of the processors for herself. She is building something." Do-hyun leaned forward to study the data. The quantum cores were being connected in a specific configuration, creating a network that would give someone incredible computing power. "She is setting up her own operation. This was never about quick money." "Smart woman," Ji-won admitted grudgingly. "Quantum processing networks like this can break almost any encryption system in the galaxy. She could hack banks, manipulate stock markets, even access government databases. Or she could sell access to other criminals," Min-sik added. "A service like this would be worth billions of credits over time, much more than selling the hardware once." Do-hyun felt a new kind of anger building in his chest. Valara had not just stolen his property and broken his heart. She had used his military-grade equipment to set herself up as a major criminal player. Every crime committed using his quantum processors would have his fingerprints on it in some way. "How long before her network is fully operational?" he asked. "Based on the connection patterns, maybe 2 weeks," Min-sik replied. "But she is being careful, testing each processor individually before adding it to the main network. Very professional. Too bad for her that she does not know about the built-in monitoring systems," Ji-won said with a cold smile. What Valara truly did not understand was how human technology worked. Every piece of military equipment came with hidden monitoring capabilities designed by Terran intelligence. The processors were not just reporting their locations, they were copying every piece of data that passed through them and storing it in hidden memory banks that only someone with Do-hyun's clearance codes could access. The communication device on Ji-won's desk chimed softly. She picked it up and listened for a moment before her expression changed to surprise. "That was my contact on the merchant ship Soul's Pride. They just detected unusual energy signatures in their cargo hold." Do-hyun's head snapped up. "Soul's Pride?" "Korean merchant vessel operating in the Kepler sector. They do legal trading, but sometimes they look the other way when dealing with gray market goods." Ji-won activated her main display screen. "My contact is Choi Sun-hee, their communications officer. She runs security scans on all cargo as a side business." The screen showed technical readouts that made Do-hyun smile, energy signatures that matched his stolen quantum processors exactly. Valara tried to sell equipment to them. "More than that," Min-sik said, studying the data. "These readings show active quantum processing. Someone on that ship is already using your hardware." Within an hour, they had established secure communication with Sun-hee aboard Soul's Pride. The young communications officer appeared on their screen, looking nervous but excited. She had been monitoring unusual data transmissions and was glad to finally have someone to report them to. "The buyer claims to be a legitimate trader," Sun-hee explained. "But the equipment she brought aboard is definitely military grade. My scanners detected Terran Defense Corps manufacturing signatures. What kind of data is flowing through the processors? Do-hyun asked. Banking information, stock market data, communication intercepts from at least 6 different star systems. Sun-hee's expression grew worried. Whoever is using this equipment is conducting major financial crimes. Should I report this to authorities? Not yet, Do-hyun said quickly. We need more evidence first. Can you monitor the transmissions without alerting the buyer? Already doing it. Every piece of data is being logged automatically by my security systems. This was exactly what Do-hyun had been hoping for. Valara was using his equipment to commit crimes, but she was also creating a detailed record of everything she was doing. Every bank account she accessed, every communication she intercepted, every criminal contact she made was being recorded by systems she did not even know existed. There is something else, Sun-hee continued. The buyer mentioned she was working with something called the hegemony. She said this was just a test run before installing equipment in their main data centers. Minsik whistled softly. If Valara gets your processors into hegemony systems, we will have access to their entire operation. That is exactly what I'm hoping for, Do-hyun said. Over the next week, their network of information sources grew rapidly. Sun-hee introduced them to other communications officers on different merchant ships. Ji-won reached out to her contacts in the criminal underworld. Minsik connected with other hackers and data specialists working throughout the sector. Each new contact brought more information about Valara's activities. She was not just building one quantum network. She was installing processors on multiple ships and stations, creating a galaxy-spanning web of computing power that she could control remotely. But she had made a critical mistake. Every processor she installed made Do-hyun's access to criminal networks stronger. He could now monitor communications between crime syndicates, track illegal money transfers, and even access security systems on ships and stations where his equipment was installed. She is turning into our best intelligence asset, Ji-won observed during one of their planning sessions. Every criminal organization she deals with becomes visible to us. The Terran Defense Corps is going to love this, Minsik added. We are building the most complete picture of organized crime in this sector that anyone has ever assembled. But Do-hyun was thinking bigger than just gathering intelligence. Every piece of equipment Valara installed gave him more control over the criminal networks she was trying to join. Soon he would have the power to not just observe their operations, but to actively disrupt them. The plan was becoming clear. Let Valara build her criminal empire using his equipment. Let her make connections with every major crime syndicate in the sector. Let her install his processors in the most sensitive and secure locations. Then, when she felt most secure and powerful, he would activate the full capabilities of his quantum network and bring down every criminal organization she had touched. Valara thought she was building a criminal empire. What she was actually building was the most elaborate trap in galactic history. And the best part was that she was paying for it herself with money she had stolen from him. How much longer do we wait? Ji-won asked. Do-hyun studied the data flows, showing criminal activity across 12 star systems. Until she makes contact with the hegemony leadership. When my processors are installed in their main systems, we will have everything we need. The hunter was becoming the spider, and the web was almost complete. The message arrived through channels so secret that most people did not even know they existed. Young Taekwon had been working undercover inside the Hegemony Syndicate for 2 years, and this was the first time anyone from Terran Intelligence had contacted him directly. Package delivered. Ready for extraction. Taekwon stared at the message for a long moment before understanding hit him like a plasma bolt. Someone had just installed Terran military equipment inside the Hegemony's main data center. Equipment that he recognized from his intelligence training. Equipment that could give Terran Defense Corps complete access to the most dangerous criminal organization in the galaxy. He was standing in the data center's control room, watching technicians install the last of the quantum processors that Valara had delivered. The alien female had convinced hegemony leadership that these processors would give them the computing power to control financial markets across 17 star systems. What she had not told them was that every processor came with built-in monitoring systems. "Beautiful work," said Krev, the hegemony's chief technology officer. He was a massive alien with 4 arms and skin like metal plates. "These processors are more advanced than anything we have seen before. Where did your contact acquire them?" "Does it matter?" Valara replied smoothly. "What matters is that they work perfectly. Your organization now has more computing power than most planetary governments." Taekwon watched the processors come online and felt a cold satisfaction settle in his chest. The hegemony thought they were gaining an advantage. What they were actually doing was handing Terran intelligence the keys to their entire operation. Within hours, the processors were integrated into every major system the hegemony controlled: banking networks, communication arrays, security systems, even the life support controls for their main station. Everything was now flowing through hardware that Terran intelligence could monitor and control remotely. But the best part was what happened next. Valara, eager to prove the value of her equipment, suggested that the hegemony use the new processors to conduct a major financial operation, something that would demonstrate their new capabilities to other criminal organizations. "We could manipulate the stock prices of every major corporation in the sector," she suggested during a meeting that Taekwon was allowed to attend. "Show everyone that the hegemony has become the most powerful force in organized crime." Krev's eyes glowed with greed. "How quickly could we implement such an operation?" "Within days," Valara assured him. "The quantum processors can break the encryption on any financial network. We could steal billions of credits without anyone knowing until it is too late." Taekwon almost smiled. Valara was not just giving Terran intelligence access to hegemony systems. She was encouraging them to commit crimes that would justify a massive military response. Every illegal transaction would be recorded, providing evidence that could destroy the organization permanently. The operation began 3 days later. The hegemony used Do-hyun's processors to hack into the financial networks of 12 major corporations. They manipulated stock prices, stole credit transfers, and accessed private banking information belonging to millions of citizens. What they did not know was that every crime was being recorded and transmitted in real time to Terran Defense Corps monitoring stations. Every stolen credit was tracked. Every privacy violation was documented. Every piece of evidence needed to justify military action was being gathered automatically. Meanwhile, on Star Vegas, Do-hyun watched the data flow with growing satisfaction. His stolen equipment was not just being used to commit crimes. It was creating a complete record of the hegemony's entire operation. Financial records, communication logs, personnel files, and security protocols were all flowing through systems he could access remotely. "This is incredible," Minsick said, studying the information streams. "We have access to everything. Bank accounts, safe house locations, weapon caches, personnel records for thousands of criminals." "And they have no idea," Jiwon added. "The hegemony thinks they are conducting the perfect crime, but they are actually building their own prison." Do-hyun was thinking about something bigger than just gathering evidence. The processors did not just monitor the hegemony's systems. They controlled them. With the right commands, he could shut down their communications, freeze their bank accounts, even lock them inside their own stations. "How long before Terran Defense Corps responds to all this criminal activity?" he asked. "Based on the evidence we are gathering, probably within a week," Minsick replied. "This level of financial crime will trigger automatic response protocols. They will have to act, but Do-hyun was not content to wait for official action. The processors gave him the power to act directly, and he had been planning for this moment since the day Valara had betrayed him. The first sign of trouble came when hegemony communications began experiencing mysterious failures. Messages were delayed, corrupted, or sent to the wrong recipients. Security cameras started showing false images. Banking systems began reporting impossible account balances. "Something is wrong with the processors," Krev reported during an emergency meeting. "They are malfunctioning." "Impossible," Valera insisted. "This is military-grade equipment. It does not malfunction." But the problems continued to grow. Hegemony. Personnel found themselves locked out of their own systems. Money transfers were reversed automatically. Encrypted communications were being broadcast on public channels for anyone to intercept. Taekwon watched the chaos spread and knew exactly what was happening. Someone with access to the processor control codes was systematically dismantling the hegemony from within. Every security measure was being turned against them. Every strength was becoming a weakness. Within 48 hours, the hegemony's operations across 17 star systems were in complete disarray. Criminal organizations that had worked with them for years were cutting all contact. Law enforcement agencies were receiving detailed information about crimes that had been perfectly hidden just days before. And in the middle of it all, Valera finally began to understand what she had done. The quantum processors were not just equipment. They were weapons. And she had just handed those weapons to someone who wanted to destroy everything she had worked to build. "Find out who is controlling our systems," she demanded during another emergency meeting. "Find them and kill them." But it was already too late. The hegemony's power was built on secrecy and security. With both compromised, they were defenseless against the response that was about to come. Bank Sejin of Terran Defense Corps received authorization to begin anti-terrorism operations exactly 7 days after Valera had installed the last processor. The timing was when Do-hyun finally activated the full power of his stolen quantum processors. The galaxy's communication networks experienced what would later be called the Great Transparency Event. Every encrypted message passing through hegemony systems suddenly became visible to anyone with a basic scanner. Bank transfers, assassination contracts, political bribes, and trade secrets flooded public communication channels in an unstoppable wave of information. On Star Vegas, Do-hyun sat in Ji-won's pawn shop watching the chaos unfold across multiple screens. Each display showed a different star system where hegemony operations were collapsing. Criminal organizations that had hidden in shadows for decades were suddenly exposed to the light. "Look at this," Minsick said, pointing to one of the screens. "The hegemony just lost control of their main banking network. Every transaction they have made in the past 5 years is now public information." "And here," Ji-won added, indicating another display, "their weapons smuggling operation in the Tau sector. Complete customer lists, delivery schedules, everything." But the most satisfying screen showed Valera herself, trapped aboard a hegemony, stationed as security systems turned against their own personnel. She was trying desperately to contact someone, anyone, who could help her escape the disaster she had created. Her first message reached Do-hyun through intermediaries who still thought they were dealing with a simple theft case. "Please," the message said, "I will return everything I took, all the money, all the equipment, everything. Just stop what you are doing." Do-hyun deleted the message without responding. Valera had missed the point entirely. This was not about getting his property back anymore. This was about teaching the galaxy what happened when someone decided to steal from a human. The second message came 6 hours later, after hegemony leadership had realized that their mysterious systems failures were not random. Someone was actively destroying them from within their own networks. "I know you can hear this," Valera's voice said through crackling speakers. "I understand now. The processors were never just equipment. They were weapons. You planned this from the beginning." That message made Do-hyun smile. Valera was finally starting to understand what she was dealing with. But she still did not grasp the full scope of what was happening. The truth was that Do-hyun had not planned any of this when he first met her 3 years ago. Back then, he really had been just a lonely mining engineer looking for love. But humans were remarkably good at adapting to changing circumstances. When Valara had betrayed him, she had created something much more dangerous than a heartbroken victim. She had created a very angry human with military training and nothing left to lose. "The hegemony is finished," Minsik reported as new data flowed across his screens. "Their operations in 12 star systems have completely shut down. Personnel are abandoning stations and ships as fast as they can find transport." "What about their leadership?" Jiwan asked. "Trapped on their main station. Someone locked down all their escape routes." Minsik looked at Do-hyun with new respect. "That someone was you, was it not?" Do-hyun nodded. The quantum processors controlling the station's life support and security systems were responding to his commands perfectly. Krev and the other hegemony leaders were now prisoners in their own fortress, waiting for whatever response their crimes would bring. That response came sooner than anyone expected. Bank Sajin arrived at the edge of the system with a full Terran, Defense Corps battle group. She had authorization to conduct anti-terrorism operations against quantum processing smuggling rings. The timing was, officially, a complete coincidence. "Attention, Hegemony Station," Sajin's voice broadcast across all communication channels. "You are surrounded by Terran Defense Corps vessels. Surrender immediately or face the consequences." The response was immediate and predictable. Hegemony forces tried to fight back, but their weapons systems had been compromised along with everything else. Ship targeting computers fired at empty space. Defense platforms shot at their own vessels. Communication arrays broadcast hegemony surrender messages that no one had actually sent. Within 2 hours, the battle was over. The most powerful criminal organization in the sector had been reduced to scattered refugees fleeing in whatever ships. Still functioned properly, but the real victory was not military. It was informational. The data flowing through Do-hyun's processors had given Terran intelligence the most complete picture of organized crime in the galaxy that anyone had ever assembled. Names, locations, financial records, communication logs, and operational plans for dozens of criminal organizations were now in human hands. "We have enough evidence to prosecute crimes across 17 star systems," Sajin reported during a secured communication with Do-hyun. "This intelligence operation has been more successful than anything we have conducted in the past decade." "What about Valara?" Do-hyun asked. "In custody aboard the main station. She is requesting protection in exchange for cooperation with our investigation." Do-hyun considered this for a moment. Valara had information that could help prosecute other criminals. But she had also betrayed him personally, and humans took that kind of thing seriously. "Tell her I said no," he replied. "Sir?" "She had her chance to do things the easy way. She chose to steal from a human instead. Now she gets to face the consequences like everyone else." Sajin was quiet for a moment. Then, "Understood, sir. The Corps has also asked me to extend an offer of employment. Your intelligence work on this operation has been exceptional." Do-hyun looked around Jiwan's pawn shop. His old life was gone, destroyed by Valara's betrayal. But something new was being offered in its place. Something that would let him continue the work he had started. What kind of employment? Counterintelligence. Specialist. Your job would be identifying and dismantling criminal organizations that target human interests. The galaxy is full of people who think humans are easy marks. Apparently, that is a problem that needs systematic correction. Through the shop's windows, Do-hyun could see Star Vegas's neon lights flickering in patterns that had once made his eyes water. Now they looked like victory celebrations. "When do I start?" "Immediately, if you are willing. There are several operations that could benefit from your particular expertise." Do-hyun smiled as he realized what Valara had actually given him. In trying to steal his old life, she had opened the door to something much better. A chance to make sure that what happened to him never happened to another human again. "I accept," he said. The hunt was about to become a career. 6 months later, counterintelligence specialist Kim Do-hyun stood on the bridge of the Terran Defense Corps vessel Inchin's Vengeance and watched another criminal syndicate's quantum communication network collapse under the weight of its own hubris. The techniques that had destroyed the hegemony were now being used across the galaxy to dismantle organized crime operations that targeted human interests. "Target network is down," reported Communications Officer Kim Yuna from her station. "All encrypted channels are now broadcasting in the clear across public frequencies. Weapon systems are compromised," added Tactical Officer Ryu Jaemin. "Their defense platforms are firing at random coordinates. Some are targeting their own ships." Do-Yun nodded with satisfaction. The Serpent Syndicate had made the same mistake as the hegemony. They had acquired stolen human technology without understanding what they were really buying. Now their entire operation was being fed directly to Terran intelligence through hidden monitoring systems. "How many personnel are requesting surrender?" he asked. "Approximately 3,000 across 8 stations," Yuna replied. "They are offering full cooperation in exchange for protection." "And their leadership?" "Trapped on their command station. Life support and security systems have been locked down using their own quantum processors." The irony never got old. Criminal organizations kept buying stolen human technology because it was more advanced than anything they could produce themselves. What they did not understand was that human technology was designed to be interconnected, monitored, and controlled remotely. Every piece of stolen equipment became a window into their operations. "Sir," Yuna continued, "we are receiving a priority. Message from Star Vegas Station. Commander Park Jiwon is requesting communication." Do-Yun smiled at hearing Jiwon's new title. His former partner in the pawnshop business had parlayed her success in the hegemony operation into an official position with station security. She now ran the most successful anti-smuggling operation in the sector. "Put her through." Jiwon's face appeared on the main screen, looking professional in her new uniform, but still carrying the sharp intelligence that had made her such a valuable ally. "Do-Hyun," she said without ceremony, "we have a situation that requires your expertise. 3 human males have reported being conned by alien females in the past month. All 3 cases involve stolen quantum processing equipment." "Same pattern as Valara?" "Identical. Romance, trust, theft, disappearance. But these new criminals are more careful. They are not trying to build networks. They are selling the equipment immediately and vanishing." Do-Hyun felt the familiar cold anger settling in his chest. Some people never learned from the mistakes of others. Where are they now? Unknown. But we have a lead. Lee Minsik detected quantum processor signatures in the Vega sector. Someone is using stolen human technology to hack civilian banking networks. Minsik had done well for himself since the hegemony operation. Terran military intelligence had recruited him immediately, and he now ran classified projects that paid better than anything in the private sector. His specialty was tracking stolen technology and turning it against its thieves. "How quickly can we respond?" Do-Hyun asked. "The Inchin's Vengeance can reach Vega in 18 hours, replied Captain Cho Sun-mi from her position near the navigation station. "Shall I set course?" "Do it." As the ship changed direction toward their new target, Do-Hyun reflected on how much his life had changed. 6 months ago, he had been a heartbroken victim with nothing but revenge on his mind. Now he was a Terran Defense Corps specialist with the resources to ensure that human technology was never used against human interests again. The quantum processors that Valara had stolen were still out there, still broadcasting their locations to anyone with the proper codes. But now they were part of a much larger network. Every piece of human technology sold on the black market carried hidden monitoring systems. Every criminal organization that bought stolen equipment was unknowingly giving Terran intelligence access to their operations. "Sir," Yuna called from her station, "we are receiving another message. This one is from the Outer Rim. Source claims to be Valara." Do-Yun's expression hardened. Valara had been sentenced to 20 years of hard labor on a prison asteroid after her conviction on charges ranging from theft to conspiracy with terrorist organizations. How was she sending messages from the outer rim? Put it through. The message was audio only, transmitted through a chain of intermediaries that must have cost a fortune to arrange. Valara's voice was different now. Tired, desperate, afraid. I know you can hear this, she said. I want you to know that I understand what you did, what humans are capable of. I thought I was stealing from one person, but I was really stealing from all of humanity. Do-hyun said nothing, waiting for her to continue. I escaped from the prison transport 3 months ago. I have been running ever since, but there is nowhere to go. Every criminal organization in the galaxy knows what happened to the hegemony. They know what happens to people who cross humans. No one will work with me. No one will even talk to me. The message paused, and when Valara spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. I am sorry. I did not understand what humans were like when they were angry. I thought you were weak because you loved easily. I was wrong. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Shall we trace the signal? Yuna asked. Do-hyun considered it for a moment, then shook his head. No. Let her run. She is already paying the price for what she did. And it was true. Valara had become a cautionary tale whispered in criminal circles across 3 sectors. The alien who had tried to con a human and accidentally handed Terran intelligence the keys to half the galaxy's underworld. She was living proof that stealing from humans was a mistake that could destroy entire criminal empires. Sir, Captain Cho reported from the navigation station. We will reach the Vega sector in 16 hours. Intelligence reports indicate at least 2 criminal organizations are operating there using stolen human technology. Good, Do-hyun replied. It is time to remind them why that was a bad idea. As the Inchin's vengeance jumped to faster than light. Travel. Do-hyun looked out at the stars and felt a deep satisfaction. The galaxy was vast, full of opportunities for those bold enough to seize them. But it was also full of criminals who thought humans were easy targets. They were about to learn otherwise. The truth was that Valara's operation had been small compared to what humans were really capable of when they decided someone needed to be taught a lesson. She had only stolen from one human, and he had been in a relatively forgiving mood. But word was spreading through the criminal underworld about what had happened to the hegemony, about how human technology could be turned against anyone who stole it, about how crossing one human often meant crossing all of humanity. Some lessons, Do-hyun reflected as he prepared for his next assignment, were worth teaching properly, and humans, as the galaxy was slowly learning, were very good teachers. End.